Our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Shows What You Know, your television podcast. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jim from Las Vegas.
I'm Jacob from Sweden, and welcome back from Japan, Jim. Quite the travel you've been on.
Yes, that's true. I did. I went international. Everyone said that, I need to watch Shogun. So I flew to Japan. I watched one episode. Didn't quite like it. Enjoyed Japan quite a bit. And now I'm back to discuss all the TV that we've been missing out on. We're going to start off with a little discussion on the recent Penguin show on Max, the one to watch for HBO. We're also going to talk about Wiseguy, the Sopranos documentary that was just released, also on Max, the one to watch for HBO, and maybe how these two kind of connect. Is the Penguin coming after Sopranos' lunch? We'll have to find out. And if you're on the Cut to Black feed, we're going to throw this on the Cut to Black feed. Speaking of Sopranos, we have reviewed and discussed every episode of The Sopranos. You can find more of Jim and Jakob on the Shows What You Know feed, just talking TV. What do you think about that, Jacob?
I like it. Yeah, we're talking on the Shows What You Know feed. We're talking about any TV shows. It just so happens that we've got two prime reasons to throw this into the Cut to Black universe. So hi, everybody. Welcome back. We got a bunch of shows. We're going more or less weekly discussing things. We're also going to chat later on about Chimp Crazy. I'll have some things to say about Agatha All Along, maybe the Lord of the Rings show. We'll see how far we get. It really is feast or famine here because, I know we took some time off, but, there are so many things to get into. But The Penguin is the most recent, the most relevant, and I think probably the hottest. Is it the buzziest show coming out right now, Jim?
Yes and no. I'm surprised that in my regular bubble, I'm not hearing it. I guess real life. But then again, I think there's so much TV that in my real life day-to-day, people don't really bring up TV shows. I mean, online, you'll see a lot of pockets of discussion, but it's almost like everyone's just overwhelmed and battered with so many things to either stream or, you could just live in your bubble and rewatch The Office over and over again, whatever you want to do, or rewatch The Sopranos. But Penguin, the hot news show, spin-off of the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman movie that came out, what was that, 2022, 2021, something like that. The most recent one,
I looked it up the other day, 2022, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. Not connected to the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, not connected to the Batman Ben Affleck, but connected kind of to The Sopranos because they make Colin Farrell look a little bit like an uglier James Gandolfini. He also kind of has mommy issues, and his mom's a little disturbed. The only difference is he's more of a kind of a street capo looking to take over, which I guess Tony's a little bit like that, but Tony was kind of the boss right from the beginning. So now, do you think there was a conscious effort to be let's make this a little bit like The Sopranos?
Well, we watched the trailer a little while back before it came out. So at this time, just the first episode's out. So there's not going to be any spoilers. We'll let you know if we get into spoilers for the first episode. I think we'll just have a general discussion, tell you whether we think you should watch it and all that. But when I watched the trailer, I was like, so it's The Sopranos. It seems like they're literally doing The Sopranos. And I had that reaction literally when the mother character came up in the trailer, and that was the exact reaction I had as well when I watched the episode, because throughout the episode I'm like, yeah, it's pretty Sopranos-y, it's HBO, it's kind of, they're doing a serious take, and then when he goes to see his mother, I'm like, this is literally just a scene out of The Sopranos. This is that made me go okay, so that was the pitch. That was, I refuse to believe that The Sopranos wasn't mentioned when they were pitching this show. It is like a blank meets blank episode. That's another podcast where me and Jim come up with television shows and we just draw random things out of a hat and make up a new concept. It is like the Batman meets The Sopranos. Literally, that is what this show is. And just like everything we come up with on Blank Meets Blank, I kind of like it.
Yeah, no, I do kind of like it. It's only one episode in, so it's hard to gauge, but I'm liking what they're doing. I do like that. I mean, it's grounded and gritty, but they sprinkle enough, and I hope there's a little bit more as the show goes. They sprinkle enough like levity or almost kind of humor here and there. That's the stuff that I kind of attach myself to almost immediately, like just the little things of like Dolly Parton when he turns his car on and like 9 to 5's blaring on the car stereo, and even his Christopher Moltisanti character, his sidekick, young guy that he's bringing up, kind of has a little grin, a little smirk to himself. And even like the slush puppy discussion, because I was a big fan of slush puppies growing up as well. So I was like, hell yeah, slush puppies exist in Gotham. That rocks. I don't know if you're aware of this, Jacob, growing up in Sweden and living in Ireland, but slush puppies are a real thing.
Is that just like slushies, like,
yeah,
and then you mix them, and is the puppy the mixing? Is that what
well,
it is?
it's just like a brand. There would be a slush puppy machine, and their logo, like it says slush puppies, and the logo is like a dog. And yeah, you could pick your flavors, but he likes the suicide. That's where you kind of mix a bunch of them together. So little things like that I like, because the problem with, there have been other, I mean, not even just Sopranos takes, but just mob movies in general, like the genre, you can get caught up in the gritty realism almost too much. Like the reason why something like Goodfellas is so great is that it's a group of guys that are also seem like guys you'd want to hang out with, but then you're reminded that they may just kill you, or they'd be very friendly and make you laugh, but they wouldn't have a problem with killing you. So I enjoy stuff like that. What I also like about this show is that we're really, and this isn't like revolutionary or that new, but I like that we're really getting into it's more about like the haves and the have-nots, but within the crime like hierarchy. Like it's not so much I'm looking at rich, wealthy tech bros or something like that. And I know people will be like, well, they are criminals as well. Okay, but yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about like mob people and how there's still the people at the top with the nice, huge mansion. And yeah, you might be making money as a street guy or a street captain, but you're still kind of living in shit. And you came up with like, I really like what they're hinting at and what they're planting the seeds for as far as that kind of power struggle and how that's, going to affect the Penguin and how he reacts and how he navigates through this world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Batman film, the 2022 film, which I only saw in the cinema and I haven't rewatched, the way I remember it kind of tips over into that more gritty thing that you were mentioning. Like, maybe it goes too far in that direction where it's like, oh, it's so dark. You should watch this in black and white, guys. This is a cool fucking film. Whereas The Sopranos, as we know, is, it's half a comedy show. It's you can set a laugh track to it, but it's just like the dialogue, the things that happen are so funny, and then there's like ruthless violence or like something psychologically extremely disturbing in there as well. And I think so far they've set a good balance in this show where, in one scene, the Penguin's walking down some steps carrying a body, and it's very laborious, and then he goes, wait a minute, and just kind of throws it down the stairs, and it's just like funny and a fun moment and like showing his character. And it's Gotham feels like a realish city. I have to say it's kind of the wobbly walk that gets me. That's what reminds me that we're watching a gritty reboot of something silly, which is such a concept that we all used to make fun of. Like, whoa, what does everything have to be a gritty reboot of Power Rangers? Like, people used to make fake trailers of stuff that's like, oh, what if they made, Teletubbies like a gritty horror film? Like, that used to be on YouTube 2014, 15. That was a popular thing to do. But then we made so many of them in the mainstream that it became irrelevant. And it's all just like, that's just what culture is now. Like, we've grown so used to it. So it's really only the walk where I'm like, oh yeah, like this is the same character that in other Batman media is like, I'm the Penguin, like, like a fucking idiot. So, yeah, I mean, I said I kind of like it earlier. I have to admit, I really like it. I
Yeah.
think the first minute of this episode is very effective in setting up the plot. And the first minute, I mean, like, there's sort of a montage of news reporters talking about what's happened recently, which is great because I don't remember the Batman, right? Like what
Same,
happened in the
yeah.
Batman, I
It's been
don't
a
know.
while.
So they managed to give you kind of a previously on, but at the same time they're kind of doing a shot that slowly moves in on the Penguin, and you just kind of see his face as they're talking about a power vacuum forming in the criminal underbelly, and all of that happens in like a minute, and I'm like, this is great. Super straightforward plot. There's a power vacuum. We're going to get to see the Penguin go for it. So they managed to set all of that up where I think if they'd cut that out, if that wasn't in there, it would have just started. And I'm like, what are we doing here? What's the point of this show? But then that sets the tone immediately. And then I really like the real opening scene that follows that with Falcone, the previous dead crime boss's son, and the Penguin. Their dialogue back and forth already feels very The Sopranos, and more generally feels like an HBO show. You know, it feels like in Game of Thrones season 1 when we spend all this time just in conversations between people, and then suddenly there's violence happening, and you know, I don't know. I think I am over. I liked it way more than I thought I was going to, and way more than I should, given that there's only one episode out so far. Because the plot also works out throughout the whole episode. Like they've set things. Maybe the bar is just on the floor, Jim, but like they set things up and they pay them off within one episode. They have, you know, working 9 to 5. It's a joke early on, but it comes back at the end of the episode for the credits, for the needle drop. The slush puppy thing, of course, that comes back later, and that's kind of showing how the Penguin has a connection to the everyman. He's not like those fancy crime people in the fancy house. You know, he's one with the people, and that's what he talks about in the opening scene as well. He talks about this noble idea of the mobster that exists in his mind. That's what he wants to become, something that's adored. I love that the Falcone kid clocks that as well, and it's just like every scene in it is really good. And again, I've set my own expectations way too high because I really like this episode.
Yeah, I mean, and Colin Farrell, like, there's a lot to be said about how they have to cover him in a fat suit and prosthetics and all that stuff when, like, you know, maybe you could have just found kind of a fat guy to play the Penguin, but at the very least, he's giving a great performance, because this could so easily be like a farce, you know what I mean? And especially like because he's got like the heavy accent and everything, where he's like, we going to Wicks over there, like that type, like the gruff, like kind of a little bit over the top accent, but he does make it work. And I guess part of it is sold because of the makeup and the prosthetics. I mean, the whole thing when the Batman was in theaters, I remember the talk was like, that's Colin Farrell. And there's a little bit of that when you're watching the show. Sometimes you're like looking, at least I caught myself like looking at him and like, do I see Colin Farrell in there? But it works. And actually that does remind me, there was a news story where he was talking about there is a scene in the show where he's like taken captive and he's stripped down and like questioned and kind of tortured or whatever. And he does mention that he's under like all these prosthetics and stuff, that they even had a prosthetic penis added to the suit when he's supposed to be there naked. I mean, you don't see it on the show, even though it is Max, the one to watch for HBO. Like if this was House of the Dragon or something, we'd be seeing the Penguin's cock for sure. But maybe that's more season 2 stuff. But he says it's there, and it's interesting to hear him talking about it, because it's like it kind of gave him extra discomfort, where like in between takes he's like, oh, can you cover me up, even though like it's not his penis, but just the looking down, and it's like, well, it looks like it's my penis, and it feels like I'm naked, so it like added to his performance in a way. So that's kind of just like a fun little anecdote from from filming the show.
Yeah, and I mean, he does a great job, as you said. What did you think of the scene with his mother and that whole vibe? Because I think we can spoiler-free kind of describe
Yeah.
the plot very briefly of like he the Penguin there is looking to exploit this power vacuum. He's not a big time boss. He's kind of like uh he's kind of like a Silvio, you know, if you're to compare it to the Sopranos. He's like in middle management. He's got some people working for him, but he's definitely not the top dog. But now there's a power vacuum, and some people might be looking to kill him already, and like violence might happen. There's different crime families. He's deciding to kind of play them against each other and just kind of make some impulsive decisions. And he his at one point his car is getting sort of robbed or taken, and he interrupts that and press gangs one of the kids into becoming his driver, like, and he's gonna kill him eventually. But I guess I am getting into spoilers here, but there's a relationship between him and like a young kid off the street who is just getting dragged into this sort of crime thing, except he's not really dragged into it because he's already a criminal, but a low-time criminal. And they really do a good job of painting Gotham as a fucked up place to be right now, where like there was like the dam or whatever burst in the movie, and so literally like a week ago like all these neighborhoods have been flooded and fucked up, and there's so much crime. And unlike the Batman, this sort of puts us on the ground. It makes Gotham feel like a realish city where there's normal stuff going on alongside all of the heightened superhero stuff. So he's kind of the fish out of water, the Watson type character following the Sherlock Holmes that is the Penguin through this criminal underworld and getting things explained to him. And that's kind of the plot of the episode. We don't need to get into more detail. But what did you think of the scene with his mother? Because that was literally when they pulled up, I was like, this is the Sopranos they're doing right now.
I did like it. They do. I mean, they do a good job, like you had already kind of mentioned with the opening and so in the writing and stuff. They do a good job of painting the picture of who. I mean, I don't know why they changed it from Oswald Cobblepot to Oz Cobb. I mean, I guess they thought that was cleaner. Doesn't matter. I could see it either way. But they do a good job of like giving us insight into who Oz Cobb is, and like what he wants to be, and what are the driving forces in his psyche. And then that paints the picture of his mother, which I'm kind of dumb though, because at the end, like I was I don't know if people stream it on Max or not, but streaming services do this stupid thing. If I get into a pet peeve of mine, is where as soon as it ends, they go to the small window and they're trying to get you to click on the next thing. But I'm like, well, usually HBO shows have things at the end, so I'm trying to fast forward through the credits, and it keeps trying to go to the small window to get me to watch the Batman 2022. And I'm like, hold on, I'm sure there's stuff. And I get to the end of the credits, and they do a quick disclaimer of like, if you know someone struggling with dementia, here are some resources. And then for a second, I'm like, who has dementia? And I'm like, oh yeah, duh. I guess they do hint at that with his mother and her medication and stuff.
Sorry, did you say who has or what is dementia? Because
yeah, no, I was like, who has? I was like, who on the show has dementia? And there are a few things after the credits, if you were wondering. But yes, when they paint this picture and we get to see it a bit in action, I kind of knew it was, where it's going and where it's coming, but it's still, it works. I think the scene works, and I think the character works. It's because it is a little bit, even though we're talking a lot about, Tony and his mother with being such an important thing on The Sopranos, I do think there's a little bit of a difference here, which is, it's like, thank God there's something different, where the mother character is like, I don't want to say like a devil on his shoulder, but I don't know, just more of a driving force in his ambition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, their relationship isn't exactly the same. It's just more like he looks like Tony Soprano, kind of. She looks like Tony Soprano's mother. The house kind of looks like the house, and the vibe. Like, I was surprised he wasn't pulling out like a CD player that he's gotten for her, like that. That was kind of the thing. But you're right, because when he goes there, it's to kind of skip town to leave the city, right? So that means that the scene also isn't superfluous. It's kind of showing where this drive that he has at least partially come from. And also it's what spurs him on to go like, okay, let's let me stick around and we'll figure this out and make a sort of plan for how to get out of the current thorny situation I'm in. It is a very fun concept for a show, like regardless of the Batman connection, because it's basically like I'm a guy in middle management in this mob that has already people hate me. Like people are already out to kill me, and I have to kind of play every side. He's playing everyone off against each other, and he's not doing a perfect job of it, which is interesting. And then like coming up, like getting out of the frying pan into the fire throughout the course of just this episode. So I can imagine how those stakes that are already pretty high by the end of the episode can escalate further and further throughout this mini series, I guess is what they're calling it. And it's like 8 episodes, and I'm like, that feels like a good length for this. I am quite confident that they'll be able to tell a good story. So really looking forward to the next episode, and I think it might be one we're covering week to week here on Shows Which You Know. Maybe not on Cut to Black. Go to the Shows Which You Know feed if you're on the Cut to Black feed.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other quick little aside, like Tony Soprano comparison that I kind of like is that in the beginning of the episode, the Penguin or Oz, he tells this story of a, kind of like the ideal gangster, the ideal mob boss, like that he looked up to when he was growing up, the guy that ran his neighborhood, but he took care of people, he took care of the neighborhood. And this is like a real thing you hear about, even like watching the recent mob documentary that was on the History Channel. Like, there's this idea of he helps you pay your rent. He gets presents for the neighborhood kids on Christmas or whatever. And people look up to him out of respect. And it reminds me a little bit of Tony's whole thing on The Sopranos of like how I came in at the end. There used to be respect in this business. There used to be guys that held themselves to a better standard, even though we find out through the show that's all hypocritical nonsense. Like, and at least we already see Tony in the burbs basically when we do The Sopranos, so we already kind of immediately see the hypocrisy there. I guess it'd be fun to see how this plays out with the Penguin. If it is something when Penguin gets the power, is he going to be that ideal gangster or not? So I just kind of another fun little comparison that reminded me of watching the show.
Yeah, and it's definitely also kind of, you get the impression, like even just looking at the Penguin as a character in the broader Batman mythology, right? It's like someone who is seeking power, probably in large part because they are a strange-looking person who's been made fun of, so he's kind of going for, well, then I'm like embracing that and going for like, okay, well, then you want me to be fucked up? I'll be fucked up. And like a lot of Batman villains. And it's just kind of in that moment you can see. I love that Falcone's son clocks that like, oh, you're talking about you, because that's what I was thinking as well watching it. Like he's like building up this mythos because he's talking about like, oh, this is what you should be, but it's actually like, oh no, that's what you want to get out of this. But it's definitely like in all good mob stories, it's definitely going to be like, well, that was the goal, right? But you're actually just a selfish asshole, like you're a murderer. You don't care about other people. Like this is not where you're going to protect people you like, and that's fine. But if they say something that upsets you, you're probably going to kill them, because that's the way that it works when violence becomes commonplace. So, that myth is one that mob people love to throw around, and usually we do, like in good mobster media, we do a good job of deconstructing that and sort of showing how they're all pieces of shit. And given that he is the Penguin, I'm sure we'll get to some elevated stage. It'll be interesting to see how close to, other Batman stories, how close to the Penguin he becomes. I'm sure he'll get that nickname in the same way that you get like a mob nickname, right? But we're probably not going to go full into, the 90s Batman movie Penguin version. So I wonder where they'll draw the line. But, check back in. We'll let you know. But for now, I think a strong recommendation. Check out the first episode.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, I mean, speaking of mob media, Wiseguy, David Chase in The Sopranos, we had mentioned this a couple weeks back because it had premiered at, I guess, well, actually months back now, because I think it premiered at a film festival, Tribeca, I believe. And they had like everyone in attendance for it. We knew it was coming to Max, the one to watch for HBO, and it finally has. It's like a episode documentary, like interview with David Chase. And remember, initially I was like, oh, how much more can we really like? Because we consider ourselves somewhat experts. I mean, we've dug through the books, we've watched all the episodes, well, the books like the Sopranos session. But I think this was very effective. I was a little thrown off at the beginning. The beginning, they have a lot of the hyper fast cuts when they're like, I mean, they do the cornball thing where David Chase has to walk into the psychiatrist's office. Then it looks like Melfi's.
We have to say that they've built the whole set, Melfi's office, right? And that's kind of what they show in all the trailers and stuff. And it's David Chase going in there to talk to the filmmaker and stuff. So that's an important piece. Please continue.
Yes. But at the beginning, say the first almost 10 minutes, I feel, or at least it felt like that, they keep intercutting with, some David Chase home movies growing up, and then his quick asides of stories from his childhood. And it was throwing me off a little bit because I was like, is this going to be the whole thing like this? But I guess it was a good way to kind of get into his head, because it does focus a lot on, David Chase himself, his family, the start of his career, and kind of it goes through a few of the beats of how he started getting into writing for TV. But he, famously, he was always just trying to get into making movies, and it was like he was trying to escape TV in a lot of ways. And what's great, because the running thing, if you haven't heard our Cut to Black show, is we like to think that David Chase has contempt for the audience, and I think there's some truth there.
There's ample evidence in this in this documentary, I would say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that does bridge from is coming up in TV, because especially before we hit this peak TV that we're in, or we even kind of started getting in with the Sopranos and a little bit beforehand, where you could take more chances and do a little bit more things. Everything was very formulaic, and there wasn't as many channels like cable. This is even as cable was kind of becoming a thing. He's an old guy. He's been in the industry a long time. So I'm sure he was probably always insufferable in whatever writer's room he was in, because they're like, well, no, we got to do X, Y, Z. We got to wrap it up in a bow, and here we go. But that's what's even greater, that he ends up becoming he's the guy as far as TV's concerned. When you mention these I guess Mount Rushmores of the current TV renaissance, peak TV, whatever you want to call it, whether you might mention your Vince Gilligans, or even what was it, Chris Carter with the X-Files, or even, I know he's persona non grata these days, like a Joss Whedon. But David Chase is a name that's going to come up, because he really did change television and what you can do with the medium. And what's so great is that he didn't want to do that.
Yeah, and David Chase is a weirdo, clearly. And the decisions he makes has, as you said, he made a bunch of television shows and had to follow a format to a large degree. And then eventually, the script for The Sopranos, as they get into in the documentary, was a feature film script that it was eventually turned into a TV show. And it's with The Sopranos, he was able to shake off the shackles of you have to do everything a certain way, and then just try to tell an interesting story instead, which is great. But yeah, the what I really liked about the intro was, as you said, it starts with him going into the psychiatrist's office. He sits down and he kind of explains his background. He talks about his history, and they do an interesting thing of cross-fading between him talking about stuff. So it's almost like you are watching a montage of him talking, interspersed with clips of sort of the things he's talking about. And that does a good job of giving you sort of the basics of his early life and stuff like that. But what I really like about it and what kind of got me on board with the documentary is when they show then like this is day 2 of filming or after lunch or whatever, filming interviews with David Chase, and he comes in and he's just like, fuck, I was talking so much shit. Throw all of that out. None of that is interesting. Who gives a shit? And I'm like, that's exactly the vibe that I've gotten from everything he's done is like, nobody wants to hear that shit. You got to get rid of that. Like, I would leave, but I can see you've done the whole set. Like, he like points around to the set. I would go if you hadn't done all this, you know. And I know you're going for something here, but like, I don't know. Do I even want to do this? Do I even like? Because he doesn't want to open up. He says contradictory things like a lot about the show, and he's clearly like. The Sopranos is something that's so intimate to him and so personal to him that it is like bearing your soul, and he doesn't necessarily want to do it either. But yeah, I really thought I liked the way they were cutting that montage because it kind of like was like, we've not just built a set here, we're actually taking a few more filmmaking tricks into this documentary than just the standard someone talks about something, we show that thing, we show stock footage of that thing or whatever. It was kind of like that way of cutting it was then used to have him go like, ugh, what a fucking word vomit. That was all nonsense. Because that's the way they cut it together as well, kind of getting you inside of his head. And yeah, it's very interesting. But you said earlier, like, you know, we've read the books, we've done this and that. Now, you are more into the mythos. You know more about the behind the scenes, right? Because Cut to Black, the whole concept was I'd never seen The Sopranos. We went through, watched every episode. So I have seen all of The Sopranos, but I might not be as deep into all of the lore, the books, the interviews as you are, Jim. So with that in mind, for me, there was a lot of new stuff in here. Stuff that maybe we've talked about, but I haven't like read accounts of or watched interviews about or whatever. So for you, someone who's more deeper into the mythos, how did you feel about like the information presented? Were there new revelations to you, or was it a lot of like stuff you knew? I felt like there was a great level of access in that, you know, a lot of this stuff is sometimes closed off and you hear the story, but you don't necessarily see it because obviously they are HBO making this. They have access to all of the footage and all of the, like they can pull a lot of stuff in there. So it is a very impressive production. But just from your perspective, what did you think of everything like that?
It was still really great. Even though there was a few things that I had already known, but there was also some, felt like there was some new things or maybe things I at least forgotten. Like some of the highlights to me were when they were talking about the writer's room, like that stuff I thought was really great. Just hearing about, I mean, you hear this, if you listen to other TV writers specifically as well talk, I love the idea. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know if this is still the process these days. Cause I know more and more streaming shows are like not as like they don't really have writer's room, or maybe they'll have a couple writers. But I love the idea of how they would all be in a room and they would kind of just tell personal stories. And it would have to be, I mean, it'd be a safe space. You'd have to be able to tell embarrassing stories or really personal things. And they would kind of rework that and take morsels of it and start to piece it together to make it into an element of the show. I like that. Or even just seeing like, because I had already known that I think I had heard the story that they had approached, shoot, what's her name? Lorraine Bracco to be Carmela. And I had heard that like she was like, I don't want to be Henry Hill's wife again. I've already done that with Goodfellas. But just to hear her talk about it and lay it out a bit and actually read the script and mention that she kind of honed in on the Melfi character and like how that stuff played out. Like, that was all great. I also like that they didn't get super into it, but they did touch on, like, there was some darkness with Gandolfini. Like, I mean, you don't want to disrespect him because he's passed away, but, you know, no one's perfect, and he especially wasn't, especially, like, he would we talked a little bit about this on Cut to Black throughout the episodes. He would kind of be a dick sometimes. He would disappear, not show up for shooting, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, overall, like, I was hooting and hollering, eating it up the whole time. I loved both episodes.
Yeah, and he became massive because the show became massive very quickly, whereas he wasn't an extremely well-known actor. And, he'd go on these benders and disappear on shooting days, which is very expensive. But then as they got further as well, he'd also strike a deal where, he got paid more and then just pay out to the other actors because they weren't getting fairly compensated in his view. So he just called people in and give them thousands of dollars. I love the bit where Edie Falco, they're asking her about that. And she's like, "He did what? I never got any extra money." But then she's also like, of course he would do that. He's such a sweetheart. And I'm sure she wasn't getting Gandolfini money, unfortunately, just given how equality works in Hollywood and the rest of the world. I'm sure she wasn't getting paid as much, but also she wouldn't be the main person in need of that extra 10 grand or whatever he was doling out. So yeah, it is great access, and it's great to hear just firsthand stories retold from the actual people as well. How you mentioned Lorraine Bracco and how she taking on this role, it was such an introverted role in many ways, right? Because Melfi is there to listen and kind of be very calm to Tony's like being mad and stuff like that. So it's a very different sort of role for her to play, given compared to the sort of the over the top mob wife sort of character that she'd been previously. Sorry, what were you going to say there?
Well, I was going to say I don't know if this was deliberate or if they just don't have it. I mean, I assume they must have something, because when they were going over like the casting of Tony Soprano and they were showing audition tapes of like, you see like Artie Bucco in there. I remember I've read it a bunch of times how the actor that eventually played Richie April, Jackie April. I'm sorry. Yeah. Jackie Sr. The actor that ended up playing Jackie Sr. was like very close to being Tony, and you see a little bit of his audition. What I thought was interesting, they don't show a clip of Gandolfini auditioning. I mean, they do mention that famously he stops in the middle of it and gets up and leaves, which it almost sounds like that would be a strategy. Like sometimes you hear actors that try to do a thing to set themselves up for the part. Or, I mean, I've heard other people say like, you almost have to act like you don't want a part to get it. Like, cause that makes Hollywood want you more. Cause like, wait, what is up with this guy that he doesn't want this thing? And the myth in me would feel like if once he got up and walked out, they looked at each other and they're like, that's what Tony would do, But I thought it was weird that they didn't have like at least a clip of him doing an audition. They would just show the actual scene. Now, I couldn't tell if that was like a deliberate thing, they didn't have it, or they just felt it better represents to show him in the scene. But it was just like I was almost like awaiting. I anxiously wanted to see him doing it in the audition portion, but they don't have footage of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because it seems like that was kind of setting the scene for how he would do it later on as well, right? Because they have a lot of clips of him like in that same office, or the same looking office that David Chase is in, and he's just kind of like trying to make Lorraine lose her place, or just kind of they got across quite well how the material was difficult for him because Tony Soprano is such an angry character. There's so much like darkness in him, and clearly Gandolfini was, his style of acting was he had to live it. I love the part where David Chase was talking about the fridge.
So good. Such a good story.
Yeah, it's great. So if you haven't seen it, it's basically just like James Gandolfini is talking about how it's such a dark character. He has to go to such angry places to be this person. And David Chase points out that for this specific scene, it's true in many cases, but this specific scene was like he opens a fridge and there's no Coke or whatever he wants out of the fridge, and he closes it angrily, right? Is that what it said?
Yeah, it says, he slams the fridge door or whatever.
And like, in the episode and what he does, James Gandolfini taking on this role is like he beats the shit out of that fridge, he kicks the shit out of it. So it's just, and David Chase is like, I just wrote he closes the fridge. Like I didn't tell you to go to these dark places
Yes.
and get all of this sort of rage and anger into every scene. But he does it because, like, it's a legendary performance, obviously.
Yes,
It's one of the
it's
main
so good.
reasons we're still talking about The Sopranos, but clearly it also took its toll. So we get a pretty intimate view of that, I think, in this documentary.
Yeah, because Chase is like, so, Jim does the scene. He starts beating the shit out of the fridge. And then he makes a comment after the scene, and he's like, man, I got to go to these dark places. Like, it's just so much. And I'm like, Jim, where in the script does it say you beat the shit out of the fridge? And I assume it's the lo mein, I think. When he's like, who came in here? He's like, I've been thinking about that lo mein all the way over here. That is a scene that's like burned in my mind because I feel like I would do the same thing sometimes. I remember I talked about this a few times throughout The Sopranos where I was like, wait a minute, am I a bad guy? Because sometimes I would freak out about the phone ringing or, my food's not in the fridge. I've been, who the fuck ate my shit? But yeah, and what was also great to see, it was kind of as it starts getting towards the wrap up of the doc, and Chase is just kind of talking about the experience in general, and he kind of gets into like how he misses it. And maybe that's why we saw something like Many Saints in New York or Newark or whatever, which I know was very. I haven't rewatched it since we first watched it. I didn't seem to dislike it as much as a lot of Sopranos fans did. But maybe it's because we're notorious that we hate reboots and sequels, but we watch them all. So I didn't have super high expectations. I liked a lot of it, but either way. But it's interesting of how he's at this point now where he misses that experience, and he mentions like the problem solving of it, of like, that's got to be wild. Like they talk about how they'd be at the writers' room, they'd be talking, and he's like, I just couldn't take the talking anymore. He'd get up and he'd like go in his office and lay down, and they'd think he's sleeping, and he's like, well, I'm not really sleeping. He's just sitting there like thinking about everything, and then he'd go and start writing things on a board. And like, we've made stuff like on our own, so obviously on a much smaller scale, I can relate. Like, sometimes you're at that moment staring at a blank page or a blank screen, and then you put something together, and then you go through, like, when you're in the moment of trying to make something, it's such a pain in the ass, and you're kind of like, why am I doing this? But then when you have a finished product, and even if a few people get to see it, and then sometimes when you have even more distance from a project and you rewatch it and you're like, wow, like I'm really proud or happy that I made this. And you get that itch where you want to do it again. But then when you're in it again, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? This sucks. This is bullshit. Everything sucks.
Yeah.
So I love seeing that. I mean, not just in a documentary like this with David Chase, who I hugely respect, but I love just, picking the mind of a creator and like seeing how they can reflect on their work. So overall, this I thought was a home run.
And that's what they're doing, right? Because as we said, David Chase is pretty closed off in many ways, or he'll kind of, you get the sense as well in this documentary that he's not necessarily someone you would want to work with, because he'll probably fire you or like freak out about you not doing a good enough job, because he holds himself to impossible standards, so he holds you to impossible standards, and all of that. But it is, you and me would be particularly such marks for this type of stuff, of getting those insights into how it worked in those moments. Because, as you said, on a much smaller scale, I've had those moments where you're working away at something in a story, trying to figure it out, and then you go and lay down on the couch, or it's days later, and then all of a sudden you just get a download into your head that you don't know where it's even coming from, but it's because you've been working away at it, and then the back of your mind is kind of doing some processing while you're off doing something else, and then you're like, oh, fuck. And you just like open your notebook or your phone or whatever and type out loads of stuff, because now it's like, that's what makes it click. Now it's coming together. And just getting to see specifically how that worked behind one of the greatest TV shows of all time is great access. So, you can read all the memoirs you want, you can listen to all the podcasts you want, but they set out to get inside David Chase's head. I mean, that's why they put him in the therapy chair, right? And I think they do deliver on that promise. They do a good job of it. If you're a Sopranos fan, I can understand why you wouldn't like Many Saints of Newark, wouldn't understand why you wouldn't like this. Even if you know all of the stories or most of the stories, they're gonna have some footage you haven't seen, or of some audition or whatever. It's just like, and just getting to live inside that creative process without having to go through the pain of being fired by David Chase.
Yeah,
it's a win-win, really. So definitely check out Wiseguy, David Chase, and The Sopranos, which is the full title of the doc.
And one thing that was kind of new to me that I feel dumb for missing, like in the series finale, although I noticed it in the end, like in the end when Tony first steps to the doorway of Holston's, and he it goes to his point of view and he sees himself in his point of view. Like that one's very obvious, so I noticed that. I never picked up on all the other scenes where he's walking into his own point of view. So, I mean, even as, someone who's discussed all these episodes, and I'm sure maybe I read that somewhere or something, but like to see it and hear them talking about like taking their influence from 2001 and how that played out, I was like, oh, geez, I'm still picking up on things there. Which does, the hallmark of a great show. So,
yeah, and we have. I mean, okay, never mind. I was gonna say how the doc ends, but just watch the doc.
Oh, yeah, that's
you'll
right.
Get it.
Yeah, you'll get
but,
it.
it was it because obviously they talk, like, the first episode is basically about the making of the start of The Sopranos, and then the second episode is how it gets massively popular throughout to the end of The Sopranos. And they talk about the ending of The Sopranos, and I always, like, when I think about the ending of The Sopranos, like, it's not vague at all. Like, it's very straightforward to me.
Yeah.
How it ends, what happens. I don't understand why people are confused. Is there just a lack of media literacy? But watching this, I'm like, okay, I guess it's kind of intentionally vague. I still don't think it's that vague, though. I think it's it's super straightforward. But they are right in that, like, it would be worse if it was the same ending, but you see Tony Soprano get shot. Like, no one would remember that ending. You'd just be like, oh, I guess he got shot at the end. Like, what if they have a big shootout in the store, and you see which of Tony Soprano's kids get killed in the crossfire? The ending is perfect. Like,
it really is.
As I come back to it, obviously I knew how it was gonna go more or less from the start of our podcast, cut to black, a Soprano sit down. But still, like, the way they discussed it there, it just made me think about it again. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's not, I already thought it was pretty clear and good. And now I'm like, that little level of ambiguity, or that kind of bringing you into Tony's shoes that they've done throughout the whole show, even with all the fucking dream sequences, it all pays off. I know you do. And it all pays off there in the last moments of the show. So I'm so glad people were confused, upset, etc. And I am sure David Chase is as well.
Yeah, the only, and this wouldn't even necessarily be a downside. This isn't necessarily a downside, except for like using up free time. Like, the only downside I would say about this documentary is I'm like, oh, I want to rewatch The Sopranos. You know what I mean? Like, you come out of it like that.
Well, lucky you get to watch The Penguin.
Yeah, very true. But speaking of watching stuff,
what TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
Jacob, what have you been watching?
Well, if you're on the Cut to Black feed, you might not know, but we chat about whatever TV shows we've been watching lately, and I got a few on my list here. Now, we've eaten up a lot of time talking about the two main ones here, but I did want to catch up about Chimp Crazy, because that's a documentary show we talked about a while back when there were 2 episodes out specifically, and since then, all 4 episodes of this have come out, and it is another HBO or Max, the one to watch for HBO, docuseries. So it's kind of in the same realm here. But the full show is now out. And it's been a little while since we finished it, but I did want to catch back up on it since we had a fervent discussion about the ethics behind the show, the whole concept of it, and what we thought about it. So to give a quick recap, this is the guy who made Tiger King, how he shall forever be described, I'm sure Eric could. The guy who made Tiger King, he's made this new documentary about people who keep chimps as pets, and sort of following one in particular who ends up in a lot of drama of basically a court order to get the chimps removed from this person's custody, and they do not comply, or they seemingly do not comply. And we're going to get into some spoilers here, but the short version before we do that is, check out this documentary series. It is very good. Do you have anything to add non-spoilery on the Chimp Crazy discussion before we get into any details of how it plays out and how it ends?
I would just agree. I think it's very good. I highly recommend it. I feel like this deserves, I think it's better than Tiger King. So it deserves the same attention, if not more. So yeah, basically that's about it. Like non-spoilery.
Yeah, and I'll say, I basically spoilers for episode 2. So it's not necessarily like spoiling the end of it, but there's some tension built around where is this chimp? And I'm going to get into some of that. So if you want to go in clean, go check out Chimp Crazy. If not, this still won't be like, it's not like it'll ruin the point of watching it or anything, but I do want to talk about the specifics of where this fucking chimp was for over a year.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a spoiler. But, Jim, do you have potentially maybe a sound of some sort we might be able to play to indicate what section we're going into here?
Hold on, I didn't have it ready, but I think I do.
It just occurred to me as we were chatting
about.
Yeah.
Let me see. Something along the lines of what you might be referencing here.
Just generate something with AI real quick. Okay.
Yeah, if I could pull up my AI machine real fast, chick, typing into the AI machine. Give me a spoiler jingle.
Ayo, this is AI generated bullshit. AI generated bullshit by AI Jacob. Here we go. Spoiler alert, we're gonna spill the beans. No turning back, no living in your dreams. We'll reveal secrets and we'll blow your mind. Darth Vader was dead the whole time. And in The Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis was that kid's dad. Dumbledore killed Snape, made all the kids sad. Man, you can't control these spoiler bars. And the Planet of the Apes was actually Mars.
Ooh. There you go. AI does it again, ladies and gentlemen.
Amazing. Why do artists even exist? So Tonka lives.
Yes.
If you've just watched the first episode of Chimp Crazy, the plot is that Tonka is supposedly dead. That's why Tanya Haddox does not give up Tonka. And then the basically the whole main conflict of the documentary, the whole plot of it becomes, where did Tonka go? And as is revealed at the end of the second episode, Tonka is alive and is being kept in Tanya Haddox's basement and has been kept there for about a year at the point where the documentary ends. And that's kind of how it plays out. Tanya Haddox claims that this chimp has heart problems and is not allowed to go outside. And I just had some things to say because there's been a lot of discussion about sort of the ethics of this show because the creator hires a proxy director because he's known as the person who made Tiger King. So all of these exotic animal people don't want to talk to him, very understandably. So he's hired someone else to pretend to be the director. And we both said last time we chatted about this, that's kind of fine. We're kind of okay with that, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. But there's been so much talk about that and very relatively little talk about the fact that the documentary crew knew where this chimp was for such a long period of time. Now, I do think it's a great piece of entertainment. It's a great documentary. People should check it out. But I don't think you can talk about it without acknowledging the fact that look, Tonka was in a bad situation from the start. When Tonka was in the original sanctuary that was court ordered that he should be removed from, along with all the other chimps, that was bad. But that was not the fault of the documentary filmmakers. You know, that was on Haddocks and the other person running that sanctuary. And then when he was kept in that isolated room with no windows, no outside contact for over a year, that was animal abuse, pure and simple. And at that stage, as soon as the film crew and the director knew and decided not to come forward, they did become complicit in that animal abuse. And don't get me wrong, it is a riveting documentary. It's probably more riveting because they don't immediately go forward with that. And also, don't get me wrong, maybe I would have done the same thing. Because where do you draw the line? When do you decide to step in? Because obviously they do eventually, this is the spoiler, right? Like, eventually, when it turns out that Tanya is going to euthanize this ape, they do step in, let PETA know. They come, they take the ape away. Turns out Tonka didn't have any heart problems. You know, Tonka would have been fine, which was the real, like, where I was like, so even the people they brought in as, like, vets probably weren't actually vets looking at these chimps. But I was just like, ugh. Like, I just don't understand why there's so much talk about what the documentary crew did to the humans and not what they did to the animals. When they decided to put the film above the health of the animals, I think they did become complicit in that animal abuse. And they also allowed the court system and animal rights groups to sort of waste untold resources trying to resolve this situation, with tens of thousands of dollars being given as rewards. And I don't know. And I also found, like, the scenes where Eric Good is expressing his qualms, I found them pretty contrived in the episodes, where he's just kind of like, oh man, what should we do? This is really tough, guys. And he, like, talks to people about it, like, is the ape in any danger? And then, like, it always cuts weirdly around there where someone's like, well, this situation, it's kind of hard to decide what to do. And he's like, yeah, it is kind of hard to decide. And then it's like 3 months later, and I'm like, you're just keeping this ape there, huh, Eric? I don't know. I just felt like his hand wringing does not make his hands clean in this situation. And it's not like because he kept they kept the ape there for a whole year. It's not like, oh, we uncovered some grand conspiracy and were able to bring someone else down that we weren't going to be able to bring down regardless. You just made a better documentary through this conflict. And I don't know. I just felt I felt like no one was talking about it, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird.
I still disagree with you. I don't think that they're necessarily complicit, because these are things that were going to happen either way, and probably would have happened. It would have been worse if they weren't making the movie. Now, I get the argument that, yeah, I guess they could have immediately shut everything down once they got word of what was going on. I do think that they got more information on who she was being helped by, whatever her other contacts would be. I mean, I guess looking at it, I don't know if they've necessarily, it's still fresh enough where, has she gotten charges or anything like that? Has anything happened to her because of this? Because I'm looking at, there was just something from only like a week, or no, less than 2 weeks ago, where Alan Cumming asked feds to revoke license of Chimp Crazy Tanya Haddocks. So, like, it does seem like they're still kind of in litigation or still in the midst of figuring this out. I mean, the reality of the situation is, like, it sounds like even with what she did, it's not like she's going to face large charges or anything major anyways, outside of, I guess, maybe her funds, like her bank account, more than anything. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think it's as simple as, like, well, they should have just shut everything down immediately, alerted the authorities. But yeah, I mean, I do think maybe I was probably clinging to the health issues of the chimp a bit too much, which is, like you said, it is revealed that that's not even real.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they knew about that or didn't know about that. I also don't think I think even my one thing I do disagree with you on, I think when they bring up her euthanizing the chimp, I feel like that was even flimsy. I don't think that was going to be an avenue she ever would have went down. Um, but then again, I mean, again, it's been like a week or two since I watched it. I watched it on a flight. That felt like they wanted something to show that why they changed it up and went to the authorities or whatever. Because maybe it's because it might be because I think I think the documentary does a good job of empathizing with her. And in the end, I do kind of empathize with her. I don't think she's a good person, Tanya Haddix, but I do believe that she's coming from what she thinks is a good point of view. I mean, you could say that about any villain, but I do think that she absolutely feels like she's doing the right thing or thought she was doing the right thing. And it is wild that even when everything comes out, she still does talk to them because she is kind of such a sad person that she just wants anyone to listen. And then in a weird way, to me, the documentary stops becoming about just like animal abuse, and it is essentially about people, and it's about how lonely people can be, how people have a need to be wanted or a need to feel important in another person or anyone's life. And again, I mean, you could totally trump what I'm saying, but yes, there was still suffering by an animal to get to this point. I can't really disagree with that, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as they were complicit and they don't care about the animal. They only care about the film. I think there's more layers to it than that.
Yeah, I'm just saying they cared more about the film, and that's why it's a good film. And that is a very, very interesting moral dilemma. I just find it interesting that so many people are so quick to chat about, oh, they pretended like they were a different production company. And
That's
I'm like,
weird. I mean, I guess I haven't looked at a lot of the discourse yet on this, so I didn't realize that people were really hung up on that.
I guess
part of it.
yeah, I don't know how hung up people are, but like that's when people are talking about ethical problems with the documentary, they seem to mostly be talking about that. And I guess that's what I'm attacking more so than anything else, because it just pisses me off that, oh, lying to a human is worse than being complicit in keeping an animal locked up isolated in a room, letting their health get worse and worse over the course of a year. I just feel like, I don't know. I don't think that it would have happened anyway is a valid excuse for a documentary film crew. And it is always an interesting question of like when you're supposed to step in. But I just put that bar way higher when it comes to animals, I guess, when it's like people or people being involved in behaviors that are negative to themselves or the people around them. But it's like you're observing a behavior, that's one thing, versus like this animal has no say in where it's put, right? Like it's not put itself into this situation. Unlike Tanya Haddix, who is told like, this is a documentary crew.
Yeah.
What you say into the camera is going to go out in the world. And she chooses, it is absolutely insane, and it was part of what makes it a good documentary. She chooses to bring this documentary crew in on this crime that she is committing, that she knows the whole way is obviously criminal. Like she's in court lying about where the chimp is, and then just there's video footage of her going downstairs with the documentary crew to say hi to the chimp that she's lying about. So that is obviously bonkers. I'm just saying, like the animal aspect, I feel like for a documentary that's supposed to be so concerned about animal rights and hopefully doing something to make sure that these types of situations don't arise again, I'm just like, okay, but like you're just kind of wringing your hands like, oh no, like you that chimp was there for a year. How long did you know about it? When did you decide to do something about it? They leave all of these things vague because they just want to show their perspective of what's happened. And I don't know.
I do want to push back. I'm not saying just that it would happen anyway. I'm saying that it would have ended worse off without them being there. I feel like either way, them being a part of it was you're right. It was a net positive that they were there and were able to be involved in the situation to have it come out to a better outcome than it would have, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that is true. But also, if they hadn't stepped in at that point, it also would have been a worse film, right? So they did it for the animal, but they also did it for the film at that stage. At that point, the interests converged. Before then, they prioritized the film. And then they got to the point where, like, okay, they actually are the same now, because if we let this chimp die, it's going to be a really depressing documentary. So
Yeah.
it just kind of
Well, I
converged
mean,
for them there.
But even that's anything. That's like, I mean, I don't have specifics in front of me, but like PETA is an organization that's like a hero in this documentary, but they've done many things in the past for their greater good or for attention or things like that, or even Tonka in general being in movies with Alan Cummings. Like, he was in a, like, what you would consider a bad spot, being a performance chimp. And I know Alan Cummings has to reckon with that, but like he still has legitimate, I still believe that he has legitimate care and love for this animal. But like at that point, like everyone's kind of complicit in one way or another in whether it be animal abuse or just wanting to get attention for your organization or your film or whatever it might be. I know I'm kind of splitting hairs doing that, but like I'm just saying, like, yeah, we could all start to like pull out the ruler and see where we're at as far as ethics are concerned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said at the start, it's like, I don't know what I would have done in that
Yeah.
situation, but I just don't think that they're necessarily getting enough shit for this, where looking back at this doc in
That's
the future,
fair.
I think people might have a different perspective, the same way that looking back at Tiger King, we might have a different perspective now on the sort of ethics of how that was put together as well. But
well, with Tiger
that
King,
said,
and I could be I could be misremembering Tiger King. Excuse me. Because we came out, like everyone came out more with a mocking attitude towards those characters, which, you know, right or wrong, whatever it might be. But maybe it did have more empathy for the Tiger King than I remember. I think what I really liked about this is I don't feel like this mocks Tanya Haddix. Maybe she does deserve it, but I don't know. I kind of liked that it let her be pathetic in a weird way, because, and even like as it was tying it to other stories with people that had chimp pets, or, you know, even exotic pets in general, where it's not just, well, Tanya Haddix, obviously it is also about money. Like, she is trying to make money off of this situation, and Tiger King was more about like, yeah, selling and raising these pets, but getting into the psyche of, well, what would make someone want to even have one of these pets? Like, you're not in the brokering business, but you want to have, I mean, you want to have a chimp, you want to have a tiger, whatever it is. Is it about taming the wild? Is it about being a parental figure? I don't know. I was really invested in the human aspect of this. Maybe that's why I'm like, yeah, whatever about the ape. Give me the humans, baby.
No, you're right. And it's like being able to empathize with someone is kind of what makes it a good documentary as well. Being able to empathize with Tanya Haddix and sort of showing the inside of her psyche without making fun of it. I remember parts of Tiger King where it's kind of like, you know, they play Eye of the Tiger while someone's riding a jet ski or whatever, and it's kind of like cartoonish. Which is like that was such a weird heightened situation anyway, that you're like, can you believe this shit? Like, all he had to do was point the camera at stuff and like go like, is this how can you believe that this is real, that this is a real person? Which is also true of this, but it's like it goes the extra mile of bringing you into their mindset and kind of dissecting how it and why people might think this way and do these things. But yeah, I just kind of had my piece to say about it. I do still recommend it as something that if you can stomach watching animals in situations they definitely shouldn't be in, it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, and I could never, like, your stance is completely viable. I'm just giving my stance on it, and I think there's definitely that is a ripe discussion to be had. I wouldn't be so bold to be like, this is what they were going for. Like, I know that. I know they weren't like, but see, what we did as filmmakers is we actually put the discussion on you. And isn't that a sign of great? Like, I know that's not what they went for, but I do think that that's a legit discussion. It's funny to me that people are so hung up on the proxy director because
Yeah.
not that this is the same thing, but that's being like Nathan Fielder doesn't know businesses. Like, are you serious?
Yeah, no, very much so. I think I wanted to talk about it because it's such a big aspect of episodes 3 and 4, and there's there's a bunch of bits where they're just kind of like, oh no, what are we doing, guys?
True.
This is so bad. And but I found them contrived and like weirdly edited, and I'm like, you already know what the right thing to do here is, and they don't give me a compelling argument. Even though they have all the tools at their disposal, they're in control of the editing. They present the narrative. So with that in mind, I think they could have made a much better case for why they weren't doing anything. And they don't manage to do that to me. And I guess that's why I'm coming out swinging at what they're doing here. Because I'm like, yeah, they distract you by making a really good documentary. But, you know, and they get you involved with Tanya Haddix, and that's clearly where their focus is. But I'm like, okay, you made a great documentary about Tanya Haddix, this very strange person, and the broader ecosystem around her. But the focus there is kind of lost to me. It's kind of a psychological study. You do a great job of it, but you are not doing your utmost to help these animals, which is just where I'm coming in to point the finger of like, what is your goal here? What are you trying to do? Where is this trying to, like, because it is a really good film. I can't deny it. But I just feel like they let that be at the expense of the animals, nowhere near as much as, you know, everyone who's a subject in the documentary does. They all do it way worse, but you do become complicit at that stage. So that's at the stage where they decide not to do anything for a year. But anyway.
Definitely in most of like documentaries like this, when all of a sudden the filmmaker becomes a subject in the documentary, I'm like, oh, what the fuck. But with this one, I didn't mind it that much. But yeah, that usually is a red flag where I'm like, oh yeah, you just have to be part of it, don't you? But I didn't get that from this one for whatever reason.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
I mean, that's really all I've been watching, Jacob. What else have you been watching?
Well, let me give you a really quick, like, double hit. We can keep these on the same jingle even because I want to be fast about it. So, new TV shows come out. It's called Agatha All Along. Do you remember 15 years ago when WandaVision came out?
I vaguely have a recollection of this.
Yeah,
She's
it's
the lady
more
that
of that.
died in Multiverse of Madness, right?
Yeah,
Spoilers.
exactly. it's the lady that they made a really compelling TV show that was innovative and groundbreaking, and then in the next Marvel film, that character was a villain. So none of what happened really mattered. Well, it kind of mattered, but it was her villainous backstory, I guess. I'd forgotten all of that, but I had to read the Wikipedia of it because I just watched Agatha All Along episodes 1 and 2, which are the only episodes out right now. Now, because you've not seen them yet, I just wanted to do a very quick one and say, it's fine, but I kind of wished that I was watching The Penguin. That's kind of how I felt when I was watching Agatha All Along. I did have a general sort of appreciation where I'm like, obviously there are too many superhero things, especially dredged from the main two canons of Marvel and DC, but it's also kind of a marvel that this level of eclectic, weird genre stuff is going on with The Penguin is, you know, basically a mob show there, and Agatha All Along, it starts out as sort of a detective show, like Agatha or Agnes is a hard-boiled detective, and then they kind of some reality unravels and stuff like that, but essentially it's a show about witches and witches doing witchy stuff, and there's only 2 episodes out. They're like half an hour each. They seem to be setting off on some sort of Wizard of Oz bullshit. It was fine. I want you to watch it so that we can chat about it together because I don't want to get too much into it here, but you know, it was Marvel stuff again. That's kind of what it felt like.
I mean, I will say at least, even though I haven't watched it, I've been waiting on my fiance because I know she wants to watch it as well. But I am at least looking forward to this, and I can't say that about other recent Marvel releases. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to get the fine stamp of approval from Jacob Burrows.
It's it seems fine.
Yeah.
I was on board with. I would have said it was good if I didn't watch The Penguin right before it. I think, and that's why I was said that thing of like I'd rather be watching The Penguin. But here's the other part of the 1-2 punch. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. That's
Yes.
another thing that's come out recently, and we've talked about how the Game of Thrones prequel and the Lord of the Rings prequel, season 1 came out at the exact same time, and they were kind of going head to head, and it became clear over the course of the season that the Game of Thrones show was pretty good and the Lord of the Rings show was pretty bad. And they built it all around this mystery that towards the end of the season it was like, and now we know who Sauron is, and you're like, okay. That didn't make any sense, but okay. And then in season 2 happened. And I haven't watched all the episodes that are out. I just wanted to give you my quick take because I know you haven't seen season 1. And I can guarantee
I've seen a few episodes, yeah.
there's no reason to watch any more as far as I can see, which is mad because they've spent so much money on this show. And I think I want to watch every episode just to kind of dissect where it's gone through. I wouldn't watch it necessarily for enjoyment, but there's so many things that I forgot from season 1. I'd forgot how atrocious the Hobbit accents are. They're like really bad fake Irish accents that everyone in the country I live in is upset about, or not everyone, just like the 500 people who watched the show. It doesn't hurt me as much as it hurt my partner Una, who just stopped watching it. She was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this part, and just couldn't watch any more of these bad fake Irish accents. But the plot is so plotting. So much of it depends on information, like not getting to someone. The main character, Galadriel, I would say she's the main character. Her choices make no sense to me. And I'm like, this is all within like the first episode back. There are already decisions and things happening where I'm like, where's the logic? Where's the sequence of events? How do these connect? And I think the problem, and this is a very surface level diagnosis, I think the problem is that they're kind of, they've gone back to sort of the second age. It's supposed to be this mythical time, but it's at the same time got a severe case of prequelitis where there's a lot of stuff of like, where did Gandalf's staff come from? That seems to be Gandalf's plot this season, the magic in Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
I mean, there's been some chatter online, and on paper this sounds awful. I guess maybe it could be executed well, but I don't think so. I heard there's some sort of plot line where there are some orcs that are just like trying to live their lives and like raise their kids or something. And it's like, no, they're fucking orcs, dude. Especially, I get you could do that. You can make your own world of, fantasy and have the orcs just try to be some hardworking, down on their luck people. But at least from my understanding of Tolkien, that's not what you could do with his world. But maybe I'm wrong. I haven't read like the Similarion or whatever the fuck. So it just sounds awful to see like to hear that there's like an orc with their orc kids and they're like, but you broke my house. You tore my house down. Now I have to fight back or whatever. Fuck off.
That of having like orcs be just normal people would be very standard in a lot of Dungeons and Dragons type worlds and a lot of fantasy worlds that have taken inspiration from Tolkien. But I think part of what you're saying is part of the problem, which again I have to watch more of it just to have a better understanding of where this has gone wrong, I think, because it's kind of like taking this mythical fantastical age of the second age, the first few minutes of Lord of the Rings, and expanding upon it, but then they also are trying to do a concrete and logical plot, but also kind of keep things vague. Like we're in season 2, they've made a bunch of rings, but it's not really clear what the rings do. And I don't know, the magic in Lord of the Rings, like the books and the movies, are kind of on the softer side when it comes to magic systems, right? Where it's like the rules of what Gandalf can do with his staff, they're not quite clear. It's kind of more a mythic type feeling compared to something where it's more like, magic is more like a superpower. It has distinct rules. That means you can use it more to solve problems usually. Whereas this softer type magic is like, it's kind of diffuse and mystical, but that also means that Gandalf isn't going to go like, let's teleport to Moria, like he's not going to solve every problem with magic because it is kind of that softer system. But it feels like they're just trying to have their cake and eat it too with all that stuff where everything is soft in this. I just have no idea why people are doing what they're doing. And there's like, just to give you an example, like in the previous season, Galadriel finds out who Sauron is, doesn't tell anyone. She's been trying to find Sauron all season, doesn't tell anyone. I think it's because she wants them to use the rings, that she knows that Sauron was part of the crafting of the rings, but she doesn't tell the person who crafted the rings that it was Sauron, and then they leave, and then like a whole episode she's like, that person is probably, like, I think Sauron's back there tricking that person into making more rings. And it's like, why don't you go there? Like, we sent messengers. But they haven't come back. Like, okay, so Sauron is this enormous threat, but you're just kind of hanging out. You're just kind of standing around. I don't. This is why it has to be a quick 1-2 punch, because I'm just rambling because I haven't gotten my hands around what the actual problems of this show is. There's definitely like a 3-hour video essay to be made somewhere about like, how did they fuck this up so bad? Because it looks really nice. It looks beautiful, but I'm just like, it's not working. It's not working, guys. And season 2 is just more of season 1. And yeah, don't watch it.
What a shame. Well,
yeah.
Man, that was a long episode, but we talked about a lot of good stuff. What shows have you been watching? Let us know, or you can hit us up on email at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. You could also, of course, check out the video feed of these podcasts on our YouTube channel, and please subscribe and review our podcast through any of the podcast channels that you use, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever Google's doing these days. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, besides all the homework you've already gotten, go to youtube.com/awesomepedia and check out my video about A Knight's Tale. That's kind of feature film length. It's an hour and 40 minutes. I worked on it for a long time, and it's definitely worth your time. So check that one out.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, everybody.
Well, thanks. Well, there we go.
Got the black.
We our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.